Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
We have a great show lined up today with the delightful Jonelle Sims. After 25 years working for global corporations, Jonelle left the corporate world to focus primarily on her passion for helping those who are marginalized and suffering in community. This change came after she gained a profound insight into the nature of mind, thought, and consciousness, where she realized the source of all human suffering. Jonelle's 3 Principles work so far has included supporting the homeless, coaching individuals, delivering corporate workshops, and offering a comprehensive and growing list of 3P resources from around the world at procrastinationpublications.com. Welcome, Jonelle.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, oh my goodness, I am so excited for this show because you make me laugh more than anybody else I think I know.
Now the pressure's on.
Yeah, really. No, I think you are just so full of joy. I mean, every time I get the chance to be in your company or talk with you, there's always, you naturally have that exuberance and joyfulness about you. Were you always like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think, it's what saved me. When I look back in my life and the suffering that I created in my mind, what always kept bubbling up to the surface was my sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see that as, my innate well-being coming to the surface to save me every time.
Oh, that's wonderful. So tell us a bit. So you came across the principles, I think, in 2013, was it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So what was life like for Jonelle before that?
Well, I can't say that I had a bad life. Mm-hmm. I actually had a very good life. I had a pretty stable upbringing in childhood and a big family that was mostly not a problem. But I created a lot of stories in my head. Mm-hmm. And the stories in my head were about myself not being enough or not doing the things that I was supposed to do, or I always thought I should be something other than what I was. And I was very critical of my behaviors or lack thereof. And so there was a lot of created suffering in my mind, and it kind of came in the form of depression. At least that's as close as I could describe it. So when I was with people or doing things or at school, I was just fine. But as soon as I would have an opportunity to sit and just think about myself, then I would kind of spiral down and have a lot of negative thinking about myself. I think one example, I think I got it from Michael Neal, but he talked about when it's busy outside, it's quiet inside. And when it's quiet outside, it gets busy inside. So I could see very much that that's what happened with my life.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because you can say that there weren't any sort of profound external factors that would contribute to that, but then again that's what we do as humans. We all just and I love that too. When it gets quiet outside, it gets busy inside. It's so true. That's why a lot of people can't be alone. They want the constant activity, so they're not listening to their thinking. So tell me about I know you had this when you first came across the principles, you describe it as a profound awakening for you. So share that. How did that come about, and explain, or rather describe those first 3 days to me?
Yeah, I because I had this experience of not feeling good about myself and wanting to be something other than I was, and seeing in some way that it was wrong and it needed to be fixed. At some point in my 20s, I discovered self-help. I'd read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is what I need to be. This is what I need to do. And it was a really good book. I think there was lots of wisdom.
It's an excellent book.
When I go back and look at it, there's a lot of deep wisdom to be seen in that. But it was still all a doing, as every self-help book that I read was a set of steps or procedures I should do. And then once I do them, then I'll be fixed, And so I did self-help for probably about 23 to 25 years. And I read hundreds of books and took all sorts of programs. And I was in the field of corporate training and organizational development. So I was all about people development, even in my work. So it was everywhere. And I just got to a point sometime in 2013, earlier in the year, where I just realized nothing was working. I had all these steps and procedures and I'd follow them, and invariably I'd give up on them because they wouldn't work. And then I'd feel bad about that because that just proved I was a procrastinator, or all those things I'd made up about myself, that I couldn't stick it through, that I had no energy or no motivation, all these stories that I had made up. And so I just got to a point of giving up. And I kind of got this thought, well, I'm just effed up and I'm just going to have to accept it. And I've lived all this time fine with being this way. So I might as well just forget about trying to fix myself, because it's not possible. And I think there's something significant in that, because in that point of giving up, of not trying to fix myself, of in some way accepting myself exactly as I was, even if I saw it all messed up, that it gave me the opportunity to see something new that I hadn't seen before, or at least to hear something I hadn't heard before. And what happened for me was I was reading sometime after kind of giving up, I was reading a blog of a colleague who said that she and Barb Patterson had been on a retreat with these people called the Pranskys. And I've done a lot of stuff in self-help, and I'd never heard the Pranskys before. So I was kind of curious, well, who's this? And I really wasn't looking to find anything. I was just kind of curious because I'd already decided I was giving up on all this stuff. And I Googled their name, and I came across the Three Principles movie site. And I started watching the videos that were on there. And I watched a few with George Pransky, and then Linda Pransky, and then I think I saw one with Sid Banks and one with Roger Mills. And then to continue with the Pransky name, I came across the one with Jack Pransky. And I was just listening to, I think, the first or second video. And in the moment, he said, how can we take ourselves seriously in light of the fact that we're making it all up? And I didn't hear that from the perspective of an intellectual, oh yeah, we're making stuff up, I get it. I heard something deeper, and I had an immediate physical transformation that I'd never experienced in my life before. And that's why, to me, felt like, if there was such a thing as a profound spiritual awakening, then that's what it was for me. And I literally felt a wave, or a release of 200 pounds of physical weight off my shoulders, as if I'd been carrying that all my life. And it just felt so light and free. And I realized, oh my God, every single thought I've ever had in my entire life has been completely made up. I realized in some way I was living in an illusion, a complete illusion, everything made up. And I then experienced, for 3 days after that, an experience of love that I'd never experienced before. I'd had love for my husband and my family and my friends and for life in various ways. But everything that I had experienced in love before had what I would call conditions. There was an attachment or an expectation. I felt love because of this, because they were nice to me, or I liked them, or it was fun. And this had none of those conditions. It was a love that was way greater than anything I'd experienced before, because it was unconditional. And at the same time, it was oddly impersonal, which kind of makes sense to me now because, well, everything else is personal. All the personal love that I feel for other people has an attachment to it. There's a Jonelle and my husband, or there's a Jonelle and everyone else. And this wasn't that. There was no Jonelle, and there was just this love for life and appreciation of life. And I realized in the feeling of this that my immediate thought was, oh, this is God. Mm-hmm. This is what all the wise people have been talking about, this unconditional, impersonal love for everything and everyone. And I just kind of lived for a period of 3 days where I was inside myself, knowing that I was Jonelle, but at the same time, I was outside of myself. Being able to look at myself. I almost kind of think of it like I was inside a snow globe. And so I'm outside of myself, looking at myself inside the snow globe in the world, and just watching it with awe and wonder, and seeing everything as perfect exactly as it was. Mm-hmm. And during that period, I just experienced insight after insight. I was walking around having my experience of the day, visiting a relative in the hospital, or, just doing some work, or, having breakfast, or, just doing chores around the house. But everything came with a beautiful lightness and joy. I almost talk about it like, one of the things that occurred to me was that we're all walking around crazy, that we're all walking around with these stories in our head, and we're actually not any more sane than people who are in institutions, because we're having these stories and making them up and living in them and believing them as if they are truth. And I saw that, wow, like, everyone's just crazy and they just don't know it. Yeah. And it's really hilarious and funny, and it still kind of strikes me as funny. And just from that space, I just experienced all these insights after insights about money, about life, about people, about just a variety of things. Yeah. And for me, it was just a significant difference between going through my life thinking that I was Jonelle, and basically I had to figure out how to survive life. And there was only me and everything was separate from me, to realizing that there was something else on offer, that life was much bigger than I could begin to comprehend, and that there was a spiritual nature to life that you could intuit and feel and live more in the grace of.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, it's so profound, but I think it's what we all end up getting to with this understanding, whether it happens in one sort of blowout 3-day experience, or, because when you talk about touching that place of just pure love, that, I mean, for me, mine took a lot longer. It didn't happen quickly, but they were, which is fine, because I love it. So I'm very patient with other people that don't sort of take a long time for it to really filter in. But but that feeling, that visceral body feeling of, I was pulsating with that love, that feeling of love and expansion, and so much beyond, as you say, me just in my little personal body here alone in the big wide world, like you said, knowing how to survive. So how did your husband react to this? Did you share it with him immediately, or did he felt that you'd really gone crazy? Story. Yeah, tell us.
Well, I had this when I was at home, alone at the moment, and my husband was at work, and he came home, and I can't remember if I told him the same day or the next day, but it was kind of like I've discovered the answer to life, because what I could see clearly was if everyone saw through the illusion of their thinking, there would be no, well, at least not people, wouldn't be that there wouldn't be insecure thinking, but people wouldn't take it seriously. There would be no wars. There would be no great suffering like we see now. And so I've got to tell this to everybody, like, holy smokes. And at the same time, I had this insecurity because I'm not a spiritual person. I don't hang out with spiritual people. I have a little bit of a background of, my mother being Anglican and going to church when we were younger, but I don't have a group of spiritual people. I didn't read spiritual books. So I knew this was kind of crazy. Like, how do you go and tell this to people? So there was a bit of reluctance in that, but it was so enlightening and so profound and so beautiful that I felt that I needed to share it. So I attempted to tell my husband, and so I started telling him what had happened and what I'd experienced and this illusory nature of thought. And I expected that if I told him just what I had learned, that he would have the same experience as me. That was my expectation. So I figured, oh, well, he's not kind of jumping up and down right now going, oh my God, this is the answer to all life. So I thought I'd show him the video of Jack Pransky explaining the principles, because it's what it's actually, sparked my own insight. And so I'm showing the video, and he fell asleep.
Apparently that's a good sign. That's what I think Elsie was saying. She was saying it's a good sign when you fall asleep and you listen to things because it means that it's relaxing you and you're actually getting something through osmosis as opposed to through the intellect. So
it's so true. It's so true. But at the time, I just realized, oh, okay, this is just for me. I can't give it to people. They have to somehow find it themselves. And it was a good lesson right off, because I had the expectation right away that everyone would see what I'd seen. And then to have that happen right away, that he fell asleep. Oh, okay. You can't just tell people they're God and have them get it.
Or that you're married to God now too.
That's right. That's right.
I just didn't get that. So that's so funny, and that actually goes on to so you gave up with him, and clearly he's on board now. Yeah. But you also, that's what led to your procrastination publications. Share that, because I think you were saying that came about an end of year letter that you write to your family, because you hadn't shared it with your family or friends either, had you?
Yeah, I hadn't. I don't live with my immediate family. They live in another province, but I write a Christmas, or I used to write a Christmas newsletter every year. And it was about 6 to 8 pages. And I really wanted to be able to share this understanding with them and hope that they might get the same insights or some type of similar insight for themselves. But I couldn't explain what had happened and what it meant and what the principles were about and fit it into a 6 or 8 page newsletter. So I figured, well, I could send them the newsletter and then just give a little hint about what this about and put it onto a website. So my newsletter that I put out every year was called the Christmas Chronicler. And I had this fake publishing company called Procrastination Publications. And it was just kind of a family joke that we all kind of make fun of our weaknesses. And so that's what I had done. And so I thought, well, I'll build this website called Procrastination Publications, and I'll share the story there. And that's what the website started out with, was just my story on the main page, and it's still there exactly as it was before. But what happened to the website after that was I started collecting resources. So of course, once I learned this, I just wanted to gobble up more and more. So I started looking on the internet for what other recordings and books and everything that was out there. And there wasn't that as much, anywhere near as much at that time as there is now. So I just started collecting them for myself. And then I thought, oh, well, why don't I just share them? And it's easy to click on a link and go somewhere, so I might as well just store it on a website. So I just started collecting the resources, and that's what the website turned into. It's not really a business related thing as much as it is just a collection of Three Principles resources. I write a blog that I post on there about once a month, and just my story and a variety of other small clips of my story.
Yeah.
So that's how it developed.
Well, you say just your story. It's beautifully written, I have to say. I mean, I've been poring over it and reading some of the comments that people leave. That they often leave comments like, "Oh my gosh, you explain it so well," and it's so easy to understand what you're pointing to. So I'm curious, how did your family react when they read that Christmas letter?
None of them have gotten it. That's the funniest thing. I've got, well, there were six kids in the family. One passed away, so there's 5 of us still living, and none of them have any idea. And I tried in a variety of ways. There's a few that are suffering more than others, and we will have conversations, but I can always feel the resistance. And I'm sure there's an emotional component in me trying to push it on them rather than just seeing their divinity. So, and wanting to fix them so that I can feel better.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That sounds familiar. So does anybody notice a difference in you? They might not have wanted to learn about the principles, but did your family sort of see you as different?
Yeah, I don't know. I do notice that sometimes the family will say to my husband and I, or say, oh, you two are just so peaceful or relaxed, or it's easy to hang out with you, or so I'll hear things like that. But I don't know if that's something different that I would have heard before. Because my demeanor, my suffering only came out when I was by myself, alone and quiet. Most of the time when I'm with other people, I'm fine. I don't, I don't act out in anger, or I don't, not generally anyway. I'm pretty easygoing most of the time. So I don't know if people even thought in any way that I was suffering before. The other part is my humor. Was always there all the time. So I think because people saw that, they just thought I was doing okay otherwise,
Yeah. So I want to ask you about, I know you do a lot of work with the homeless community. Now, I'm curious how, that is such, I would imagine for a lot of people in that situation, before they understand the principles, very much of a sort of outside in, like I live in this environment, of course I feel the way I feel. So how do you approach somebody that is homeless and start to talk about the principles?
It's not any different actually than I approach anyone else. In the sense of, I found that what is just the most powerful, no matter who I'm with, is just watching the state that I'm in, so that with them, if I am judging them or thinking what they're doing is right or wrong, or good or bad, or if I need to tell them how they should be living their life differently, then I know I'm not in a good place with them. And just an awareness of that will kind of remind me, okay, Jonelle, just try not to be an idiot. Just relax, just talk, just find their wisdom. And most of the time I don't really tell them about the principles as much as I point out the wisdom that they already carry with them, because so many of them are what I see as warriors. Like, they live in such difficult circumstances, and so many people have so much judgment about them, thinking that they're lazy, that they should be working if they can stand up and stand in line for food, and they should just get off the drugs and get better, and what's the matter with them, and why am I paying taxes for all these things that are supporting them, and I have to, so I know there's a lot of feeling like that out in community, and they feel it.
Yeah.
you know,
I
when
felt,
people
just
walk
when you
by
were
them.
saying that, I started to viscerally feel so, oh, I can imagine. And I mean, that must be so terrible to live with that judgment coming at
Mhm.
you. So sorry to interrupt, but I was
Oh,
literally feeling my heart just
yeah.
hurting when you were
And
sharing that.
they can feel that. They know that they're being judged, and they already feel incredibly crappy about themselves, even if they don't admit it. So I just don't need to add to it. And I find that if I can just go in and share my story as best as I can, love them and support them in any way I can, to find my own love for them, even if it's personal love. But if I can get to a point of having an impersonal love for them, then I know I'm even closer to the truth. And from there, you just never know where the conversation goes. Some of them have had some beautiful insights, and it's a very good lesson for me because I can't follow anybody. Like, they're not coaching clients where I can see a development or a change. If they're getting better, I just won't see them again,
Yeah.
And there's a beauty in that for me, because it stops me from being attached to the outcome of trying to fix people,
Yeah.
and believing that my influence is important, and that and just being attached to the outcome. And there's a beauty in that, and just being able to show up, to just love, to be present, to learn about them, to learn about myself, and then just let the universe do what it does without any expectations.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And it's so true. When we all want to share this because we know how much it's helped us in our lives, and, ended our suffering, or rather brought us to a place of peace where we're in acceptance. We're all going to go up and down. We just don't, try and control it. We don't take it so seriously. It's just, sort of just part of life. But that sharing without an agenda, I think, is so important, because then, if you expect an expectation, or you have an agenda, people feel that, and then the resistance goes up. But if you just meet somebody where they're at with that open heart and just share from that place of love, then, miracles can happen.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing, like the judgment that the public has for the homeless, or that the public has for those who are drug addicted. That judgment comes from the same place of my judgment of them, and they can feel that, even if they don't even realize what it is. So the less I'm in that space, the more that I can get a connection with them and just love them however they are, whether they get fixed or not.
No, exactly. And as you say, I mean, who are we to judge, how they live their lives? And for me, it's always therefore, but the grace of God go I. I mean, we don't know what could happen in our lives that would bring us to that situation. So we really, can't judge. And it's just, so beautiful. So do you have anything else you'd like to share? I know that you have a hangout for your 3P community in Canada. I know that's a monthly, is that a Zoom conference call you do, or what is that?
Yeah, I just, I met up with a woman named Karen Miller-Williams, who knew Sydney Bankson, who has been in the community a long time. And we became friends at the Three Principles School in Salt Spring a few years ago. And we kind of had conversations on and off after that, and decided we can do anything. We could have a monthly hangout. So we started just with the idea, just the thought that it would be fun to talk once a month with each other, and then why not invite anybody who wants to join us. So it's not a big thing. It's not formal. We just come to an agreement of what date each month we're going to do. And we choose a topic based on whatever's resonating with us, or with whoever posts on our Facebook group. And we just hang out and chat and see where it goes. There's no, and we don't record it. So it gives people a little bit of comfort that they can share whatever they want to share without it going out into the blogosphere.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, I think that's beautiful. And It is. It gives a place to, as you say, for people to come. Because as much as we have this understanding, we can also forget really easily. I mean,
Oh my God.
It's and
Every
to have
day.
exactly in and out, in and out. But even I'm noticing it. Even the out, there's still the observer watching myself do my thing more, as opposed to getting so caught up in it. I'm like, okay, you've really caught up right now, but it'll pass, like it
Yeah,
always does.
I love a perspective that I heard Elsie Spittle share once, that everybody wants to have the big insight and everybody wants to, see the truth of this all the time. And so they kind of have this thing, well, I'm having my experience and I know it's just thought, but and Elsie said a beautiful thing that resonates with me all the time is, that's consciousness. That's your awareness of something that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
And if I think about myself before I had this understanding, when I felt bad, not only did I feel bad, but I was certain I was broken and that something needed to be fixed. And now I still feel bad, like on a frequent basis. I have all sorts of ups and downs with my thinking, but there is a part of me that no matter how bad I am, knows the truth of this, And what a beautiful thing, just to be aware that your thinking isn't necessarily what you're thinking,
Yeah, it doesn't define you. Well,
No.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on. I'm also thinking of Bill Pettit, nothing broken, nothing lacking. I mean, those are beautiful things to just hold on to when we do, life happens. That's it. So, well, thank you so much. That was such a pleasure. It was really.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Del.
it was really lovely getting
to meet you and hang out with you a
I
bit.
know. Okay, well, hopefully I'll see you very soon.